Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Combo Couch. I am Fiorella Isabel, and today is the day before our huge Super Tuesday, as well as in California, our huge primary. We have 494 delegates up for grabs, and we have been having issues since last week, reported by several, not only poll workers like Pasta and I have been following, but also by people in the community, volunteers, field organizers, and simply people who went in there and had issues voting. So without further delay, we're just going to start and go over exactly a few of the witnesses and guests that we've had who had issues. And one of these guests, his name is Ryan, and he is somebody that is a Bernie supporter and had registered to vote from an independent and registered as a Democrat way ahead of time, and then ran into some issues while he went to go vote. So let's play a little bit, and we're going to kind of stop and start it, Johnny, but mostly I'll just let it play through.
So who am I speaking with?
My name's Ryan. I live in Pasadena.
Okay. Last time you voted, you were NPP in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And this time you voted in 2020, just a couple days ago, right?
Yep.
What's today's date? Today is the 26th. So you voted on the 23rd or 24th?
Yeah, Sunday the 23rd.
All right, Sunday, the second day of voting, of eligible
yes,
voting.
Yes, it was the second day, 11 day.
All right, okay, so that's 2020. You changed your party affiliation from NPP to Democrat in January.
It was at least
December.
January. I think I either got notifications that it was wise to do that. So
how did you do it?
So I did it online. And it was very simple. I checked it occasionally. So I think every 2 weeks I checked it just to make sure
you were still a Democrat.
And I checked it at least 4 times before actually voting. And every time, of course, it was still listed as a Democrat. Yeah.
But Sunday around what time?
Sunday in the morning, about just after 9 o'clock. It opened at 8. It was at the Robinson Recreation Center. Very well staffed. There were at least 15 to 20, presumably volunteers, ready to check voters in. I was literally the only voter in line. So, of course, I just went to the first woman there, and who's said, "Are you ready? I can help you."
So now this is a new system, right? They got a little keypad in front of a little iPad in front of the
it was very different to the last time I voted in 2018.
Different. Did you know about that before you were going?
Yeah, I had heard stuff, and
heard stuff.
I knew that it was going to be more technical.
You didn't go to the mock drafts, though. The mock voting.
No.
So this is like first time walking in.
Yes.
All right. So you go to check in. And
So she starts by asking for the first 3 letters of my last name. I said that, and then I think she asked for my first name after that. And then, she clearly wasn't finding it, and it turns out she had, entered my name as Brian instead of Ryan. So, I said, "Oh no, it's Ryan." Okay, and then she corrects it, looks again, still can't find it. I have a very unique last name. If you just type in the whole thing, I'm sure you'll find me. So I think I'm the only one in the state with my last name. So she types in my name. I can see the screen, the little iPad. I can see it. She's got my name right. Nothing. So she says, "Well, how about I think it's better to do it by your birth date." So it was kind of clear at that point that there wasn't she didn't know the best way, or she certainly wasn't resorting to the best way in the beginning.
Yeah.
So then she enters my birth date, and again, I can see the screen. She enters it correctly, and she says, "It looks like you're not registered. Would you like to register now?"
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I was prepared for anything. So, I was like, well, I'm very confident I'm registered as a Democrat. I've checked it at least 4 times. In any case, she said, well, after, I was very confident in my registration, she said, well, do you have your ID with you? So I took out my driver's license. I handed it to her. Within 20 seconds, she magically found me.
She did?
Yeah, I saw the screen. Everything was accurate. My spelling, my name, my birth date, and my address.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to stop it for a second and note something. Pasta and I, we went over how with the poll worker that came here and how he said, bring an ID because otherwise you might get a provisional ballot. Now, this is another reason why I'm advocating for everybody tomorrow who hasn't voted yet to please bring your ID or some form of identification, because if he didn't have his ID, they would have said, they're likely given him a provisional ballot upon registering. It's not something that they're supposed to do, but people are saying literally different things depending on who you talk to. That is how big of a mess this is. And so when he had his ID, that also gave him the leverage of saying, okay, like, I have my ID, check again, I registered. So stand your ground. If you know you've registered and you've been checking it over and over again, like most of us have, because we were afraid of this, you just should make sure that you took screenshots, make sure that you have some sort of proof if you can. But don't necessarily be like angry right away. Just say, look, I'm 100% positive I registered. Please, let's try this again. And that's exactly the right approach. That's what he did. And he knew to do that because he's been, following the situation closely. But most people haven't. So I think it's something worth noting. Bring an ID. And, if somebody tells you, hey, register again, no, stand your ground. Okay, let's let it play out.
Everything I had just given her.
Yeah.
So suddenly I'm in there and,
Were you registered as a Democrat?
Yes, as well. Yes.
Okay. So then you didn't have to go and vote provisionally?
No.
Okay.
And I kind of pushed her. I'm like, I'm a little concerned here that, that you couldn't find me just using my name.
Yeah.
Since, it's not required that someone bring their ID if they're registered.
Of course.
I pushed it 3 or 4 times and, she kind of couldn't give a clear answer and I decided to leave it.
Well, the thing that's disturbing to me is that she asked you, would you like to register today? And it's like, that's trying to push you into a provisional ballot.
Exactly. So. And I happen to be a voter who is fully aware that if you registered on that date, it would have been a provisional vote. Yeah,
and I think some people might have taken that lying down. I'm glad you pushed back and whatnot. So, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts were, of course, I shared my story with people and I started recommending people bring their ID just in case. Talking to other voters, I'm like, most people don't even know if they're registered. Yeah. So if there's any doubt when you go there and they tell you, after looking up with your birthday and your full name that you're not there, of course you're going to take their word for it if you're, lesser informed.
So there's a little more to your story, though. Tell me about this.
So, that was the first hiccup, and I kind of waited to ask my next question until that was sorted out. So before actually getting my ballot printed, I asked, for a reference. I said, I have a lot of friends who want to vote in the Democratic Party, but they're registered as declined to state or no party preference.
Yeah.
And I said, if they come in today to vote, can they request to like a crossover ballot or to vote on the Democratic primary so they can vote for president? And this is again the original person who's been helping me, who couldn't find me, and it was kind of like I was speaking a foreign language. She'd answer and start talking about something totally different because my question was very specific. I said, no party preference, Democrat. And her first reaction was like, well, if you're Republican, you cannot vote on this or that. Or if you're this party, you can't do that. And I must have asked the same specific question 4 times, and she could not give me an answer. So it was to the point where, since no one else was, of the 15 to 20 people that were there, no one else was helping anybody. So I went to the guy next to her. I'm like, because he was listening on. I'm like, can you chime in? Do you have any, can you say, what you think is the right answer? He just gave me a deer in the headlights look. He had no clue either what I was asking or no clue what the answer was.
Okay. So if you are MPP, and you have and you want to vote in this election, you absolutely can. You go in and then you request a Democratic crossover ballot so you can get the ballot with the president on it and everything else on it. And then that way, they're not supposed to give you a provisional ballot. But again, people are saying that that's what's happening. At all costs, try to fight that. If you haven't switched your registration, if you switch your registration, but if you haven't switched your registration and you're just an MPP, you should have absolutely no problem saying, I'm an independent, and you can vote in the state of California as an independent for the Democratic Party, and then you register or you just go in there and you ask for a Democratic crossover ballot. Now, if you're a Republican, then you would have to switch your registration to a Democrat. And that's when they might give you a provisional ballot. So That's the thing. And Pasta mentioned it. You go to one polling center and they tell you one thing, then you go to another polling center and they tell you another. And it's not necessarily the poll workers' fault here. We're not going after them. What we are going after are the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, Dean Logan, all of these people that were supposed to fix this. And, some people who haven't done their part in the campaigns to actually lead this process into being seamless, because the field organizers have been working their asses off. And we need to make sure that these votes are counted. And in fact, we should be talking about provisional ballots. That does not make people feel like their vote won't count. A Bernie supporter that is really excited about voting for Bernie isn't going to stop coming into the polling center simply because you mentioned the word provisional ballot. So let's get that out of the way. That's not in any way, shape, or form suppressing the vote. What's suppressing the vote is the plethora of issues that we've had so far, and we haven't even gone through half of this yet. So let's go with Felicia Sandoval, another Bernie supporter who is a union member and a teacher, and who was well aware of 2016 issues with the provisional ballots, thank goodness. But unfortunately, most people aren't. And here is part of her story.
I am here with Felicia Sandoval, and she is from Montebello, correct?
I live in Monterey Park, but I voted in Montebello.
You voted in Montebello, okay. And can you just tell me what happened when you went in to vote? Because you have been a Democrat since 2018, correct?
I've been a Democrat actually my whole voting life. So when I turned 18, I automatically registered as a Democrat, and never had a reason to change until, of course, 2016. And after what happened in 2016, I Dem-exited. But when I went to the California Dem, then that was happening in the 2018, I re-registered as a Democrat because I wanted to vote in that election. And since then, I have been a Democrat. I voted in the 2018 election for the Senate, U.S. Senator, and I never had a problem in that election. So I was automatically able to vote as a Democrat. I've always voted in person. I do not like voting by mail. I just like to show up at the polls. That's just me. And so this time I have my card. So I kept it, thanks to some of the people that I pay attention to on YouTube, some of the progressives that I pay attention to on YouTube, such as Jimmy Dore. Hi, Jimmy Dore. Said to keep my card. So I kept this card, and this card has been sitting in a drawer for over a year. So I made sure to bring this card with me to the polling place in Montebello at the public library when I went on February 22nd, the very first day that the voting was open, and there are different centers special centers that were open. I think all the centers are open from today on, but I was like, I want to be the first one. So I went that day. I walked in. I was greeted. My husband and I were greeted very warmly by the people at the tables, and I went ahead and gave them my name, and she pulled up my name and she said, you're listed as a provisional voter. And I was like, what?
Okay, so just it said provisional on their system, correct?
It said provisional. So she actually showed me the screen, and everything's on an iPad, so everything's now electronic. So they have a little iPad on the little stand, and she turns the stand around and she shows me there was a provisional, there was a banner right above my name. And it said provisional across. It was a red banner, and it was in white lettering, provisional, kind of like a banner that you see on the news, but it said provisional all the way across.
Okay. And at that point, what did you do, and what did you ask them? Because you voted.
Okay, so we're just going to pause it right here, because I recall people saying that we were producing unfound conspiracy theories when we had the poll worker come in, and he was like, verbatim the words, if you are somebody, right, like Felicia, you could have been a Democrat your whole life, but you switched your registration as of 4 years ago, the computer might say provisional ballot. And the reason for that is because the computer is, for whatever reason, reading anybody that switched their registration as a new voter. So the computer is just following this algorithm where because she switched her registration from MPP in 2018 to Democrat, even though she's been registered as a Democrat her whole life in the old system, the computer is counting these people as new voters. It is a huge issue, and obviously that is what she experienced. That is why it came up, and she's right. It is now an iPad-like looking thing, and the computer lets the poll worker know what your record is. And it's going to come up as provisional, provisional, provisional. She mentioned it looks like a banner. That's exactly what it looks like. It just says it over and over again. So that tells the poll worker, oh, you get a provisional ballot, right? And that's why she's like, what? Because she voted in the last election as a Democrat. So why would she get a provisional ballot, right? But this is what I'm saying. This is the computer system and how it's marking these people as new voters when they simply registered into the Democratic Party in 2018. Also, along the new lines of the new law, they should be able to register that day and not have any sort of conditional or provisional ballot. But that's not what's happening either, because the system isn't updated clearly. So do you have the video? Okay, awesome. And like, as you can see, that is exactly what was described in that moment with that poll worker. So
select the correct address from the list, press next. Enter the voter's house number, street name, then a list of enter register from the CVR, and the check-in clerk will complete the right side. Tap register from the CVR.
No, she was registered. So they just entered her information and it came up provisional. Yeah. Well,
CVR provisional envelope in a drop-down box. Tap next. Have the voter confirm their information and sign.
there it is.
Tap next.
So
Check-in
she
clerk
didn't confirm, obviously, because she's not a provisional ballot. So, yeah. So let's let her finish up her story, because there's a lot more. But yeah, so if this happens to you, be like Felicia.
2018 elections. So how could you now then show up as provisional?
That's exactly what I asked them. I said, how is it that I'm a provisional voter? I don't vote provisional. I've never voted provisional. I know that in past elections, provisional means that if you happen to be at a different polling place outside of your precinct, that you can vote provisional, and then you have to have it placed into an envelope, and then it's marked as a provisional ballot. But I also know that in the 2016 in the primary, when Bernie and Hillary were running together, that a lot of the provisional ballots were not counted. They were like, well, Hillary won. Okay, we're done. So I'm very aware of this, and I've had an awareness of this since 2016. It's not that I haven't been aware of, being a voter and taking part in my democracy. I think that for the first time, I was really aware of what was going on. And my opinion, I believe that Bernie was cheated out of the 2016 primary, in my opinion. So this awareness has my, kind of has my hair standing up when this lady is standing there telling me that I'm going to be a provisional voter. And all she could really tell me to explain as to why was no explanation. All she would tell me was, well, ma'am, your vote will get counted. It's just that you have to go over to the table next to you and you have to sign a paper stating that you are a provisional voter, and it'll get counted, but later. And I said, no. I said, I said, I said, here's my card. I shoved it in her hand. There it is. There's my card. I just recently re-entered as a Democrat. Here is my proof. Doesn't say anywhere that I am a provisional absentee ballot, any of that. I am a voter in person. I used this when I voted in the 2018 election. That's what I'm telling her. I said, there is absolutely no way that I am going to accept a provisional ballot. I refuse to accept a provisional ballot. And she just looked at me. She says, well, and of course, I'm not going to make such a scene. She's a poll worker, she's not. This, to me, again, red flags are going up. So I said, well, I need to speak to a supervisor. So She brings a supervisor. Supervisor basically tells me the same thing. They're looking at the screen. I'm standing there. I'm watching them. And she says, well, ma'am, she says, you're going to have to sign that you're a provisional voter and your vote will get counted. It'll just be counted later. I said, no. I said, I want my vote counted today. I'm here to vote. Here is my proof. I have my, why would I get my voter, my guide to voting? Why would I have this card and then be placed on a provisional? I don't vote by, I think they mentioned, well, maybe vote by mail, maybe. I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't want to hear any of that. I said, no, I voted last time in the Democratic election for senator. I want to vote today. I want my vote counted today. I refuse to accept a provisional ballot because I don't believe it's going to get counted. I even said that. I said, I know what happened in 2016, and I know there were thousands and thousands of votes that didn't get counted. And I know that's going to happen, and I don't want that to happen to my vote, not my vote. And they just sat there, and then all of a sudden, the gentleman that had been checking my husband in says, well, she could just register as a Democrat today, and she could vote today. And to me, they looked at him like as if he just let the cat out of the bag.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Vote right now. Right now. I'll vote. I'll register again as a Democrat. Vote right now. And they just stood there. And then the gentleman said, well, why don't you back out of the screen and enter in? Okay. Backed out of the screen, entered in. I don't know how that changed anything. I don't know if him saying that I could register again as a Democrat and that would change anything, but all of a sudden the tone changed. And she just said, okay, ma'am, here you can go ahead and sign. So I had to sign on the screen, and I was given my ballot. It was not marked provisional. I did not have to sign anything provisional. I was able to vote. I was able to print out my ballot because it's very large now. And I was able to see that Bernie Sanders' name was I voted, of course, down ballot and all that stuff, but the most important person for me was to see Bernie Sanders on that paper. And then I cast my vote. The one thing that I have issues with is they do not give you an actual receipt. So when I used to do a paper ballot in the past, they would rip off the bottom of the receipt. I would cast my ballot, and that was my receipt. And I don't know if it had a tracking number or whatever it did, but I had a receipt proving that I voted. They don't have that. Now it's just you get your sticker.
All right. So I want to comment on that because she was very insistent, right? And what she did is something that I think it varies by polling place, because they could have easily said, oh, you're a newly registered voter, here's a conditional ballot. But I'm recommending, if you run into that situation where they're literally forcing you to have a provisional ballot, be like, okay, well then I can just register and I'll get a normal ballot now. I mean, I really have been advising people to bring IDs, to do whatever they can, and to not get a provisional ballot. And she did the right thing. But what I'm confused about is she's registered. Clearly, she's registered, right? She got her sample ballot. She has everything that proves that she's registered. It just says provisional. So what I'm thinking is the system is not updated yet, right? And it hasn't marked her as somebody. It has marked her as somebody that's a new voter, which then wouldn't make sense if she's registering again for her to be a new voter.
To me, it sounds like they were just gonna register her.
Right. That's what I mean.
From the beginning. And then they backed out, and then they've put in her name correctly.
I don't know
what it sounds like to me.
I don't know what they did, but all I know is when the poll worker was here initially, he said, because it's computer prompt, like Jonny just showed on the screen, right? So if he goes back and enters the right information, that's it. It'll say, okay, it'll clear that banner provisional. It'll print her a new Democratic ballot, and then she'll be able to get that. This doesn't make sense. I mean, the fact that this is varying depending on which centers you're in, depending on which poll worker you talk to, it's really, I'm genuinely worried. And we've already had people, messaging me today about all these things going on. And I just think Secretary of State Alex Padilla and Dean Logan need to answer to this, because this isn't something we're making up. These are real people. These are people that simply want to cast their vote. I don't care if they're Bernie supporters or not. The fact is they should be able to cast their vote. And unfortunately, what we've seen in the past is she's right. The provisional ballots aren't counted. I mean, as a last resort, obviously, it's a very, very last resort. Obviously, vote no matter what. But we don't want that, because, the mainstream media is going to go, oh, Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren won, Bernie, they're going to frame that narrative just like they did in 2016. Now, there's more, because what we found out by another poll worker gets worse. But let's finish up with Felicia, because she also had another issue. And this is something that might not come to a surprise to many of you. And I'm going to go ahead and mention it because it's right before Super Tuesday. And at this point, all things need to be said in the open. Felicia went to Lewis Myers in the LA office, the Bernie Sanders campaign in LA. He is the LA field director. And she went to speak with him to address her concerns about this issue that she had experienced. And so she's going to let us know exactly how that went.
So I'm not happy about the way it happened. And my concern when I went to the office, the Bernie Sanders office, and I spoke to this guy named Lewis. Okay,
yes,
Lewis.
So tell me about what happened when you spoke with Lewis, because, you went in there kind of to tell him, hey, I'm having issues. Maybe other people are having issues too. We just want to be on the lookout to make sure, nobody takes a provisional ballot. Because if you hadn't been as aware as you are, most people aren't, unfortunately. And if you hadn't been as adamant about not taking a provisional ballot, then you would have been given a provisional ballot. So...
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing. I have attended already, I think, in the last 6 months, I've done about 5 or 6 canvasses in various areas here in Pico Rivera and East LA. I've spoken to a lot of really, really nice people. For the most part, very supportive of Bernie Sanders. A lot of Spanish-speaking people. I speak Spanish. And I present myself as, this is who I am, and this is why I'm supporting Bernie Sanders, and I believe in Bernie Sanders wholeheartedly. His policies, this is about policy to me. So I went into the office, and I asked to speak to Mr. Myers, and I ended up speaking with him, and there was a young lady in the room, and I believe her name escapes me right now. She's also been one of the organizers there. And she was there, and...
Scarlett, I believe.
Yes, okay. That's her name. That's Scarlett. Yes. Okay. So him and Scarlett were there, and I proceeded to tell him my story, and I don't feel like he was completely trying to brush me off, but when I start hearing, this is what I start hearing from him, that, there's a lot of things going on, and I have to be attentive to not just you, and there's 3 million voters that I have to be, and there's other things that I had, and I've got this background doing this, and I've got this background doing that, and organizing and all this, and it's just like, okay, I don't really need your resume.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you based on what I've experienced, based on what I've seen, and based on, how I have come to be more aware than ever. My awareness, of course, before 2016, I voted for Obama twice. I really believed him to be progressive. Didn't really turn out the way I'd hoped. But I think that that's on me now. Now that I have an awareness, I have, in my opinion, a responsibility. That's why, rather than complain, rather than whine, I get involved. I knock on doors. I go speak to people. I'm vocal about what I believe and the policies that I believe in. And the track record, obviously, with Bernie Sanders, saying what he's going to do and doing what he's going to say, and not, pretending or lying or trying to buy votes or any of that stuff. So I'm speaking to Mr. Myers, and I guess my expectation was that he would be like, you know what, let me go ahead and write this down. Let me take a record of this. Let me go ahead, this, you, and there are other things going on. Not even discounting what I'm saying, but I really kind of felt like he was just discounting it as, I got a lot of other things going on, so I can't just, I can't just respond to you like this is the red flag that you're, and he didn't disagree with me, but I just kind of felt like, it's serious, but I don't think he quite, the response to me was just like, I know that you're upset about this, I know, but we've got a lot of other things going on here. We got other issues that we have to handle. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the response I expected, and it wasn't quite what I had hoped for. I think what I had hoped for was that Mr. Myers would be like, let me write this down. He never wrote a thing down. He never took anything down on paper and said, I want to write this down. Because really what I was explaining to him and trying to get across, and I guess we were kind of, we were not meeting eye to eye, was that you need to train your volunteers to tell people that if they have their proof that they are Democrats, because I have proof that I'm a Democrat, bring it with you, first of all, so that you don't get sidelined at the poll. And not accept a provisional ballot if you are a Democratic voter and you've voted and there's no reason for you, and they give you this line that you have to take a provisional ballot, you say no. I refuse to accept it, and have your paperwork with you. And I think that because these things come up, they need to be addressed, and the trainers or the trainings need to happen where they need to explain to the volunteers, you need to do this. You need to explain to them that, not to stand down. And the two things that Mr. Meyer said that really didn't sit well with me. First thing he said when I explained my story was that, well, I took care of it. It's been taken care of. It's been handled. And I'm like, what do you mean it's been handled? I'm the one that handled it. I stood my ground. I refused to accept the ballot. And they said, well, see, you handled it. So I didn't like that. That's kind of a little bit of a gaslighting kind of move. I covered it, we took care of it, it's been dealt with. But that's not how you handle it with somebody, especially a volunteer. Okay, I'm giving my time. I'm not being paid for this. I don't want to be paid for this. I'm giving my time to volunteer and go work on behalf of Bernie Sanders, because that's 100% why I believe in him. But to tell me that I've already handled the problem and I'm the one who he's referring to, that put me off. The second thing that put me off was that I talked about how a lot of these people that I've been speaking to are young folks. They're young. They're probably just barely voting age now, have zero context, zero awareness of what happened 3-4 years ago back in the primary. So I'm telling him, I'm like, this needs to be dealt with. This needs to be addressed, because you have I've spoken to people who've never voted in an election or not considering voting in an election because of Bernie Sanders. Like, I don't know. I'm looking at what he's saying and I'm really liking what I'm hearing. And I'm having these conversations with people, as a door knocker, I'm having these conversations saying, well, look, this is why I believe in him. And I really believe in him because of A, B, and C and his record and his past record. And I'm getting people to really consider, because I don't believe there's any such thing as a bad conversation. I'm getting people to really consider that Bernie Sanders is the one guy that we can trust, because we're lacking in trust. I'm lacking in trust myself and any other candidate out there. There's no other candidate that I honestly trust that would actually do what they say when they talk about policy.
Okay. So, that's straight from her mouth. It's unfortunate that in LA County we haven't had the direction that we needed when it comes to the campaign staff, in particularly LA County specifically. I'm not talking about the whole general thing. And it's unfortunate that a Bernie supporter got treated that way and felt that way, but that's not even what I want to focus on, although it's unfortunate. It shouldn't happen. I want to focus on the fact that she said you should be telling people to bring their proof, to bring their IDs, to bring their ballots, because I got word that Lewis was saying that what we were saying was unproven theories and things that weren't valid. And it's actually false what he was saying. What I'm saying, what she's saying, what the other guy's saying, what another poll worker is going to be saying, and to you guys in a minute. All of that is true. Everything that we have been saying so far, and we have been talking and talking and screaming, and nobody's been freaking paying attention because of optics, right? We don't want to look bad. So we don't want to talk about provisional ballots because that means we didn't do our job. That, right? Like, so like it doesn't matter. We're not going to mention it. We're just going to let our field organizers work their asses off and then see what happens when these issues arise. No, we need to make sure to be telling. And if the campaign isn't doing that here, we will do it, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't really care who gets credit or who does it or how it looks. We want those votes to count. That's it. And the fact is, this is our democracy. This is our integrity. These are the things all the things we want aren't going to happen if we don't get Bernie Sanders in there. If we don't get a progressive in there, if we don't, like, none of this matters without actually having our votes counted. And so you can understand the fury that she had and how upset she was when she felt like she was dismissed by somebody that's supposed to be there to help. And so right now, do what she says. Don't accept the provisional ballot. Bring every proof that you have that says you're registered. Bring an ID, like Ryan said. Bring whatever you have and stand your ground.
The best thing to do actually is to bring your sample ballot. If you got one mailed to you, bring it. I voted today, and it was very easy to do because I had my sample ballot, and she just scanned it, and it brought up my name immediately, and I was registered correctly and everything. So it went pretty well for me. I know there were a few problems at the polling location prior to when I was there.
And Jonathan, just to let everybody know, you are new here. You're from Florida. So how did you go about that process?
I just registered. There's like a hand registration paper that I registered with a Bernie volunteer.
A while ago?
Yes.
Okay.
That was in like October of 2019.
Okay.
So I was registered. And then
prior.
I checked prior to Cohen, and I've gone to different polling locations and checked my registration, and we're all good.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Perfect.
Just register before a certain amount of time. I don't know. Maybe I got lucky. Some other people I heard, they made sure they were registered. Some other people we met, they said they were registered before the cutoff line, before February
25th, I think.
It was 18th. February 18th.
Oh, yes. For that, yes.
For registration cut line to be in the e-poll book. And they got a provisional ballot. And they just took it because, they were Spanish and they're not going to argue with the poll worker. I don't know.
Yeah. So let's just kind of, to wrap this up, listen to a little bit of this poll worker, John Doe 2. We wanted to once again protect the identity of the poll worker who's working really hard and came to us with some concerns of right after a training.
And for anyone who says that these are like fake poll workers, I took a video while we were recording this distorted video because we're keeping their identity safe. After the election, we're going to have them come back on and show their faces.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Where do you want to start? Question.
I'm gonna hit you up right away.
All right, hit me up.
We have a little experience. We've been going around town. We've been seeing some of these vote centers.
Yeah.
And you are working at a vote center, correct?
Correct.
All right. So for argument's sake, we're just going to call you John Doe 2.
John Doe 2.
And thank you for coming in and talking about this experience. So, what made you want to be a poll worker this time?
So, well, we got to go back to 2016.
Okay.
So, actually, probably even before that. First heard of Bernie on Tom Hartman's show, doing his brunch with Bernie. And, all those rumors of him trying to get Elizabeth Warren to jump in the race. I wasn't a fan of Hillary, so Bernie jumps in. I'm like, okay, cool. I come in going, well, Tom Hartman's always said democracy begins with you. I got to participate. And sign up to be a poll worker. And the thing is, anybody can sign up to be a poll worker.
This was in 2016.
2016.
Got it.
Anybody can sign up to be a poll worker. And so I do my whole thing, do the whole experience. And I'm at my locations and I'm going, shit, well, everybody is getting provisional ballots. At my precinct during the primary, I think we had about 200 people come in to vote. 75 of those ballots were provisional.
This is in 2016.
2016.
This is on vote day,
Yes.
election day,
On election day.
which was later then. It wasn't as early like we're coming up right now. Okay.
Exactly.
So this is your first time being a poll worker, 2016. Tom Hartman's like, get in there, kid. Get in there, John, too. Put your suit on. And you get in there to go in it, and there's about 200 voters, and 75, almost 50% of those voters get a provisional ballot.
Correct.
2016.
Yes, 2016. And then at the end of the night, we get the vote tallies coming through. We used to have Scantron machines.
Yeah.
Super easy. You
You'd
put
hand
in-
mark them?
You hand mark them.
Okay.
Put it in the machine. It'll give you vote tally at the end of the day. Hillary won 55% to 45%. And I'm counting all the provisional ballots, and I'm going, man, a good amount of these are Bernie voters. He would have won her precinct if we actually got these through. So we fast forward to 2020. Bernie's running again. And I'm going, well, got to get back in the race. So we're doing it all over. Want to make sure that I'm participating, doing my part, and being somebody on the inside, keeping an eye out and making sure there's no shenanigans going on.
Yeah. So what you learned so far, what do you think in comparison to 2020 to 2016? Now, 2016, you said there was a lot of provisional ballot. What was the main reason then, and what do you see being the main reason now for provisional ballots?
I think the main reason then was just a clear fact that they needed to coordinate Hillary. And, California was so late in the game. So what's the easiest way to cheat Bernie? Throw people off the rolls. So today, my first day working.
Yes.
Surprisingly, not a lot of provisional ballots.
Okay.
But it's a geriatric crowd coming in, so these are past voters. Getting through the rolls real easy. Out of about 100 votes we had, about 4 or 5 were provisional. And the reason why they were provisional is because someone was changing a party or they couldn't verify their address. But now, as we know, they moved California up to March to Super Tuesday.
Yep.
Because we had a candidate who was from California that they wanted to anoint. So she's not in it. She's not in the race in it now. And obviously, the establishment wants to be able to cheat or take as many votes away from Bernie to get their chosen candidate in.
What did you see the main reason for cheating today? You said you only got 5 provisional ballots.
Yeah.
But why do you have concern if there's only 5 provisional ballots out of 100? What are the main concerns for you?
For me, well, so right now we're in early voting. I think a lot of people are still going to come in on Tuesday, Super Tuesday, to vote. For me, it's going to be if we get way too many provisional ballots, they're just not going to get counted. The narrative of Bernie not being as high as he is in California is what's going to, just quell the momentum going forward, I think. So if a lot of provisional ballots aren't counted immediately, and I think I sent you guys in, from what I was told in my training, provisional ballots won't be counted till 3 or 4 days after.
If they're counted.
If they're even counted.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But why are you concerned that...
Okay, I'm just going to stop it for a sec because I just want to comment on that. He's right about provisional ballots in 2016. Poll worker, experienced it, etc. Now, I'm going to let him explain a little bit further, but I wanted to mention this momentum, right? He mentioned because Bernie coming out of New Hampshire, Iowa, Nevada had a huge momentum. Everybody, the mainstream media had a meltdown. You guys saw it. Everybody was like, oh my God, this is like, the fall of France to Nazi Germany. I mean, it was just, they were having their little meltdown, the establishment media. The moment Joe Biden won South Carolina in still questionable machines, but okay, Bernie conceded, he won. All of a sudden, Joe Biden is the front runner. Joe Biden is on the rise. Joe Biden is the winner. Bernie Sanders needs to drop out. He needs to endorse, he needs to go to the front runner. Then we see what? Yesterday, Pete Buttigieg drops out. Boom, Pete Buttigieg drops out, endorses Biden. Amy Klobuchar drops out, endorses Biden. We are seeing them have this sort of coalition behind Biden. Why do you think Elizabeth Warren is still in the race? Elizabeth Warren is still in the race because she is going to also coalesce behind the centrists. And that's the bottom line here. So why is it so important that we talk about this? Because tomorrow we need to make sure that Bernie Sanders has a huge win. At the very least, if you're a nonpartisan, you want to make sure that there is a fair election, that we have a fair shake at this thing, right? That's all people want, a fair shake. We know that if they don't count provisional ballots to 3 to 4 days after, the main media is going to say, oh, Elizabeth Warren won California. Bernie wasn't as strong. His chances aren't looking good. They plaster that all over the media. Unfortunately, the people who don't watch shows like this or other independent media start listening to that, and there goes the momentum. Also, of course, contested convention. A contested convention is likely unless Bernie Sanders gets with flying colors, right? He has the numbers, he has the voters, he has everything he needs to have. What unfortunately isn't going well is the system. The system is set up this way. It is set up against us. He's the only one out there right now of the front runners fighting against the system, right? Obviously, there's another person fighting against the system as well who has been shut out of every debate. But I'm just pointing that out, that what he said about momentum is a huge deal and why we should be talking about this. Not to instill fear in people, but to make sure everybody is prepared to stay in line tomorrow, because there's probably going to be long lines, and there's going to be issues with machines, and you're going to have to bring things that you shouldn't have to bring. And so I'm trying to prep everybody for the incoming battle that's going to happen, because I genuinely, I mean, we've been following this and it just gets bad. But what we need to do is overwhelm the electorate with as many people going out there for Bernie. So let's continue a little bit, Jonny.
There will be a lot of provisional ballots right now today.
I'm concerned because we need a change. We were promised hope and change back in 2008, and we didn't get it. We had the opportunity to get that change in 2016. We didn't get it. It's 2020. Our scientists are giving us what, at best, it's now less than 12 years before we are past the point of no return. And we need a candidate like Bernie to get in there and enact sweeping and revolutionary change that will actually get us past the next 100 years, and give us actual policies that will help average people. That's why I'm here. I want to make sure that these votes are actually counted the day of, and not given the narrative of, well, Bernie's not getting enough voters coming in.
So is it true that if you're not in the e-poll book, you're given a provisional ballot?
I haven't seen any of that happen while I've been working. So we haven't had, so at our training, we were told everything's been changing even up to the last minute. So nothing, let me go back to this. When I was called to my training, it was literally a week before. So my training was this past Tuesday.
Gotcha.
The week prior to that was when I was called by the county to be a poll worker. I said, of course. I was at my training, and all the trainers were giving us the spiel and everything. And the biggest thing they mentioned was, everything's changing because the law that was signed a couple weeks prior to that was taking effect. And now we're going to be getting, an influx of voters come in who may register the same day. I have yet to see that, just because, it's still early. But I think Tuesday is going to be a different story.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to end up what will happen with new voters. I think we did have to change a couple of registrations today without any issues. But yeah, we did get a couple of provisionals only because I think they couldn't verify the address.
Were there any paper jams today when you worked?
Actually, yeah, just a couple.
Who handled the paper jams when it went through?
It didn't have to go to our lead, actually, surprisingly. So our lead trusted the rest of us to
go ahead and do it.
To go ahead
so
and
said, did you see a paper jam? John Doe 2, go take care of it.
Absolutely.
All right. So the question I'm trying to figure out is that what is making you skeptical today to think? Is it the fact that you only handled 100 people today? Is it a volume kind of situation that really scares you? What's the main scare why you think that this election could be just as bad as you said it was in 2016?
The main scare for me is this is LA County. This is the most populous county in the most populous state of the United States. And the thing is, they are the county. This is the only county doing a whole new voters.
Yeah.
In the whole state of California.
Yeah.
And if you lose LA County, I mean, that's it. You're not getting as many delegates as you should.
Yeah.
You know, Bernie loses LA County. So imagine 50% of voters come in and getting a provisional ballot. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about voting today. And at the beginning of the day, I found out our polling location, our e-poll book, wasn't even displaying the right location. Because our router was delivered somewhere else, and we got someone else's router.
So they swapped routers.
Yeah.
So now they can't even pinpoint exactly where the voter was voting.
Yeah.
Now. So what I'm getting from you, John Doe 2, is that you're a little nervous about the performance level that your staff needs to put up with to handle this election on Tuesday. Did you get more than 1 day training or only 1 day only?
Oh, I got 1 day.
The rest of your staff?
Most of them 1 day training.
Do you think they're all on the same page on what a provisional ballot is and what a conditional ballot is?
I don't think so.
You don't. What gave you evidence of that?
I walk in today, we have 8 poll workers.
Okay.
6 out of 8 of our poll workers are over the age of 45.
Okay.
So it was me and another person under the age of 40. We had, grasp on technology and how to run everything. Everything's just tech-based. And, we had a bunch of little old ladies who didn't know how to run an iPad.
Yeah.
And they're going through the e-poll book, going, how do we do this? How do we do this? Because our training was so rushed. It was literally, this is how you do it, and that's it, moving on to the next thing.
So, new system. You worked in 2016.
Yeah.
Now you worked in 2020. It's a brand new system across the board, correct?
Brand new system.
And you guys, your staff or your coworkers have only had 1 single day of training, and you said most of them don't even know how to operate an iPad. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know the rule for if I'm a Republican and I want to switch over to a Democrat that day? Do I get a provisional, conditional, or regular ballot?
We had that happen today.
Okay.
And we had somebody, I think they were NPP, switching over to Republican without any problems.
To Republican?
Yes.
Okay.
No problems. I have not seen it go the other way around, but I think Tuesday is going to be a much different story.
Yes. Do you know if you're a Republican, are you allowed to switch to a Democrat without a conditional or provisional ballot, or you don't know?
Assuming they're following the law that was just signed, you should be able to do it without a problem. The thing is, if that software is not updated, then we may have issues.
As a non-party preference person, you can request a Democratic crossover ballot, right?
Correct.
Did that happen today at all or no?
Yes, it did.
How many times?
I want to say about 10.
10 times?
Yeah.
Out of 100, that's 10%.
Yeah.
Can your polling place, in your opinion, on Tuesday handle 10,000 voters?
No, I don't think so.
Why?
We have 5 machines. We're at a smaller location, so we have 5 machines.
Yes.
6 out of 8 of our workers are over the age of 45. We have one person at the age 70 doesn't know how to use an iPad. Imagine a huge line out the door.
Yeah.
There's no way you can process 10,000 voters.
Because now all those precincts that used to be open around.
Can you? So wait a minute. Every location is supposed to be able to process 10,000 voters.
I don't know. I think Paz was just putting a scenario out there.
Okay.
But I mean, how many voters do we expect to go to each? There's 900 voting locations.
Right.
How many population of registered people in LA County that haven't voted yet?
Right. So just to clarify, you guys, we went. We've shown this video before where I asked, forget his name, Dean Logan's guy, right? Jeff Klein. Because we went from over 4,000 polling locations to under 1,000. And the reason they did that was because we were supposed to have 11 days of voting, which obviously did not happen. A lot, as you saw multiple people mention, a lot of those places were not equipped. They weren't open. The computers were still in the boxes. Johnny and Possum went. We did that whole thing. So, like the majority of people who aren't like us, who aren't, voting early, voting by mail, all these things, the majority of the population is going to go vote tomorrow, right? And when you have reduced the number of polling locations, which was a huge concern for me from the start, you're pretty much saying, oh, we expected people to vote early, but what happens if they don't? And then what happens on top of that, you have a whole new system. You have poll workers that were trained one day on this very high-tech system, poll workers that are over the age of 45 that aren't quick on the iPad. Because when we did the mock thing, I had to help the poll worker themselves, right? And it's not their fault. They should have had more training. It's as simple as that. And so all of these factors combined, then the machines can only hold up 200 pieces of paper, then they have to be switched out. Thankfully, in his location, any one of them can do it. But in other locations, only the lead is supposed to be trained on how to do it.
Or they're afraid to do it.
They
weren't trained properly. Now, you have 1 day training. You have poll workers who don't know how to use an iPad, the new technology that we just upgraded to, right? You have
only in LA County
polling locations that don't have that have only like the one I went to today in PCC only had 10 machines. He's saying his only had 5. We've gone to a few where there's been no more than, I'd say, 15 or 20 at one place.
Yeah.
And then the parking situation, which is just a parking situation in LA in general, is terrible. So you got all these factors working at play. The provisional ballot thing, paper jams, router switching.
Yeah, what is that?
Wi-Fi can go out. So I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We'll see. I mean,
we'll see.
I hope it all goes well. We all hope it all goes well, but these are all the factors that are in play. And it was all purposely done. They're all part of a algorithm. It's like, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it can't be obvious this time, right? There's not any one candidate that they can be like, oh, let's make sure Hillary wins. It's not like that. This time it's more like we need to make sure Bernie doesn't win. And if 2016 hadn't happened, I could say this was a jump, now you're jumping into, no, 2016 happened. We saw what happened in Iowa. We are LA County, like you said, we are heavily populated. We have Alex Padilla, Secretary of State, huge Clintonite, also superdelegate, also was campaigning for Hillary while doing his job, also was sued by the ACLU. Dean Logan, also sued by the ACLU twice, has not answered people's questions. We have tried to contact him multiple times, multiple people. And this is why people like Maria Estrada go and protest the way they do, because nobody listens.
At their house.
I mean, nobody's listening. You know what I mean? And she can do it, and the rest of us can't necessarily do it. But, I am very worried about tomorrow, and I'm not trying to, again, get people not to vote. I want you to vote more than anything. I'm actually going to be voting tomorrow myself because I want to see the whole thing. And we're going to be covering this. We can release this full thing because it's a longer video. But I just kind of wanted to show you guys like all of these things, and I'm going to continue talking about this. And before we go, I have a couple of witnesses already from today, things that people have sent us on what the issues they've been having. And if you can pull it up on the screen, it's in the, I sent it to you in a, let's see. It's under elections folder. Okay, got it. So we're gonna I'm going to read the first one. They had check-in issues, equipment, staffing ballots, and other supplies. This person said, I was turned away because machines were down. I stayed and fought for my right to vote, worked with poll workers to get answers, and was able to vote 2 hours and 40 minutes later. This is at UCLA, by the way, which I was informed had 3-hour wait lines today. UCLA, of course, college kids, young people, first-time voters. Let me continue. I would like if many things about this voting process had gone differently. Democrats lose because they out-organize us. 28 people actually took the time to search and locate a center that was buried on the second floor of a building on UCLA's campus without any signage and help from security staff. 28 people were turned away. Democrats lose because a majority of us would give up. I want Democrats to win. This process and its failings gives me little faith that will. Here's the next one. They couldn't find my registration information, even though I am clearly registered to vote. I brought my sample ballot. I ended up voting provisionally at another polling location center later because they also couldn't find me. I registered as a Democrat online about a month ago and have been receiving election materials in the mail, including my sample ballot. Poll workers couldn't find me in their system using my name, then scanned my sample ballot and still couldn't find me. They offered me a provisional ballot, but I told them I would try voting elsewhere. And then this person named Gabriel ended up voting provisionally elsewhere. Voting machines down at Penmar and Mark Twain. Unable to vote, turned away. Finally got to vote using voting machine, but was given provisional ballot because voters showed as if I had previously voted. My local polling place in Brentwood would not give me a Democratic ballot because in their system, I'm registered as a no party preference voter. I recently re-registered, this time as a Democrat, well within the February 18th deadline. When I check on the status of my registration on my own computer, it clearly said Democrat. I returned twice and finally had to go to another polling place to vote Dem. At the second polling place, they easily went into the system to change my registration to Democrat. All I had to do was sign and then initial. Ballot got jammed in the polling machine and was torn, but staff tried to extricate it. They were then unable to get me a new ballot, so I had to sign a provisional ballot.
What?
These stories don't even based on the things they're saying, it's insane to me. It is insane to me that this varies depending on where you go. So let's say they offer you a provisional ballot in one place and you try and try. You might have to go to another center and do this. This is not how it should be. It should be easy. It should be simple. It should be absolutely simple. And we shouldn't be trying out a whole new system only in LA County in the biggest presidential year in modern history right now. I mean, this is like the biggest primary in modern history. And they decided, of course, to try out a new whole system that relies so heavily on tech. We haven't even gone into tech. We haven't even gone into the fact that these machines are hackable, that they're not open source, even though they told us they were open source, that they told us that you could request a paper ballot, and we have the videos there. And then they said, oh, now they're saying, nope, we never said that. That was just a tryout thing. So I don't know. Do whatever you can. Allow yourself plenty of time tomorrow. You know, if you need help, if you need rides, please feel free to message us at the CONVO couch. I'm going to be on the ground. I'm going to be on the ground in multiple precincts, pretty much reporting on everything I see. And yeah, I mean, at this point, we got to do what we can. So.
All
right, guys. Thanks for watching. And
tune in tomorrow.
Tune in tomorrow all day.
Big, huge live stream all day. People on the ground. Fiorella's going to be on the ground. We're going to see. We're going to get the footage of the long lines because there are going to be long lines. Yeah. I guarantee it.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Bye. CONVO out.